Welcome to the Dougherty County Board of Commissioners meeting with your chairman, Christopher S. Cohilas. Your commissioners include, from District 1, Commissioner Ed Newsom. From District 2, Commissioner Victor Edwards. From District 3, Commissioner Clinton Johnson. From District 4, Commissioner Russell Gray. From District 5, Commissioner Gloria Gaines. And from District 6, Commissioner Anthony Jones. Also joining us is your County Administrator, Michael McCoy, Assistant County Administrator, Scott Addison, County Clerk, Joanne Ware, and County Attorney, Spencer Lee. Thank you for joining your Dougherty County Commission meeting.
All right, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Go ahead and call to order the Dougherty County Commission regular meeting for April 5th, 2021. A note for the record that all commissioners are present in person. Let's start with the prayer and then the pledge. If everyone would please stand and bow your heads, please. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this time that we have to come together. Thank you for this Easter weekend, and thank you for the resurrection of your Son, Jesus Christ, who died for our sins so that we can live a life of grace and more bountiful and more joyful in this world. Dear Heavenly Father, please continue to bless this community with resources, this commission with the wisdom on how best to bestow those resources upon our citizens, and with a spirit of collaboration and progress. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, minutes. Consider for action the minutes of the March 1st regular meeting and March 8th work session. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? There being none, let's call the matter for a vote. Those in favor signify by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Delegations. This is where the commission will hear comments on those items pertaining to Dougherty County for which public hearing has not been held or scheduled. We ask everyone to be brief, to the point, and considerate of time for others. Is there anyone that is appearing as a delegation this morning? Okay, there being none, let's move on to purchases. Consider for action the purchase of two 2021 Dodge Ram 1500 pickup trucks for the Public Works Department from Albany Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram out of Albany, Georgia, in the amount of $52,880. Two bidders submitted bids with the highest being $64,534, but funding is budgeted in SPLOST 5, storm drainage improvements / equipment. Is there a motion?
Motion approved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? There being none, let's call the matter for a vote. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Consider for action the resolution providing for the acceptance and execution of the contract to accept the bid from the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, Reeves Construction, Inc., out of Albany, Georgia, to perform street resurfacing and full depth reclamation in the amount of $2,636,024.45 for the 2020 resurfacing project, subject to the execution of the contract by the county administrator. Funding is available in SPLOST 7 2020 resurfacing, $425,000, 2020 LMIG, $435,823.69, and T-SPLOST road resurfacing, $2 million. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? There being none, let's call the matter for a vote. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Consider for action the resolution providing for the acceptance and execution of a contract to accept the bid from the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, HTS Construction, Inc., out of Albany, Georgia, to provide rock alley improvements in the amount of $186,808.08, subject to the execution of the contract by the county administrator. Funding is available in T-SPLOST road resurfacing in the amount of $480,000. Is there a motion?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? There being none, we'll call the matter for a vote. Those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Consider for action the resolution providing for acceptance and execution of a contract allowing W.J. Kirksey Construction out of Albany, Georgia, to provide renovation of the DOCO Facilities Management Building located at 219 North Washington Street for a total expenditure of $54,353, subject to the execution of the contract by the county administrator. Funding is budgeted in SPLOST 6 for $115,000. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? There being none, let's call the matter for a vote. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Consider for action the recommendation to rescind the award made on November 2nd, 2020 to Smith Built Buildings out of Dawson, Georgia in the amount of $23,879.49 to install an equipment shed at the solid waste landfill. The vendor defaulted on the bid. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? There being none, let's call the matter for a vote. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Consider for action the recommendation to accept the quote to install an equipment shed at the solid waste landfill for the next lowest responsive and responsible vendor meeting specifications that is available to meet the project. R&M Construction out of Albany, Georgia in the amount of $32,500. The initial vendor defaulted on the award made on November 2nd, 2020. Funding is budgeted in solid waste capital outlay for $50,000. Is there a motion?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? There being none, let's call the matter for a vote. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Consider for action the recommendation to accept the bid from the lowest quoted vendor, Quality Painting Contractors out of Albany, Georgia in the amount of $36,300 to upgrade the Horace King Overlook roof and deck and paint surrounding areas near Turtle Park. Funding is available in SPA 7. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? There being none, let's call the matter for a vote. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Additional business. Consider for action the recommendation to approve the alcohol application for Pretoria Field Farms LLC, Joe Harris Morgan III, licensee, DBA Pretoria Field Farm at 5626 Walker Ducker Station Road for beer brewers. The Albany Dougherty Marshal's Office recommends approval. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? There being none, let's call the matter for a vote. Those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Consider for action the resolution accepting the proposed ordinance allowing Dougherty County to be a broadband-ready community. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? There being none, let's call the matter for a vote. Those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Consider for action the use of the Dougherty County Nuisance Abatement Resolution number 20-034 to address one purported dilapidated structure located at 3422 Sweetbriar Road. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? There being none, let's call a matter for a vote. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Mr. McCoy.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Reminder, the Governmental Affairs Subcommittee will be meeting today in room 120 at 11 a.m.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. Lee?
Nothing, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Commissioner Gaines?
Nothing, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Newsom?
Yeah, I'd like to welcome our two fellow commissioners back. Been a while. So good to see you.
It is
you,
good to
sir.
see everybody around the table.
Thank you. Thank you.
Very good, and glad everyone's safe. Commissioner Jones?
Just glad to see those local bidders on this. A lot of local bids were awarded today. That's a good thing. I like to see that.
I agree. I was thinking that myself.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to get ahead.
No, no, no. You didn't. I'm echoing what you said. It's amazing that the press is not here today to actually cover the fact that every single bid and millions of dollars were actually awarded to local vendors, and I think that's a good thing. Very good comments, Commissioner Jones. Commissioner Edwards?
Yeah, one quick thing. On that item number C, I guess this is addressed to Mr. McCoy, the attorney. What's the status of that Barbingale in reference, like, this one, you know, we voted on this one this morning, but what's the status of that Barbingale again?
On the nuisance abatement.
Yeah, on that. What did we decide on that? We couldn't?
Well, the nuisance abatement that we're talking about allows, of course, you take it to Superior Court, and if the court finds that it's dilapidated to the extent that you can't reasonably expect anybody to pay to renovate it. And then if the court finds that, and they have to find that based on an analysis made from the code enforcement as to the different types of items that are needed in order to bring it up to code. If the court finds that, then they can order the person to either demolish it or have the county demolish it if the person does not demolish it. This one doesn't appear to be, and we've had it assessed before by code enforcement, appear to be in the category that, that the court could find that it was unreasonable for what it costs to renovate the place. So we can't take it to court under the nuisance abatement. The only thing that you can do there is take it to court on the code violations that exist surrounding it. And then you have to get personal jurisdiction over whoever owns the property. That's why you can't have the entire house demolished.
So where we stand now, are we gonna take them to court on code violation? I guess,
Well,
what's your
I've turned them
what is your
both over,
recommendation?
back over to code enforcement, and they're assessing them now.
Okay,
We got an assessment back on Thrasher, on one of the houses out on Thrasher, and it clearly qualifies for me to be able to file a nuisance abatement action and have the house demolished, or if the owners don't demolish it, have the county demolish it and file a lien against the property. The other house out on Thrasher probably does not qualify, but code enforcement is doing analysis on it, and I haven't received it yet. The same thing with Barbigale. They're back out there on an analysis on Barbigale, and I haven't received that one back from them yet, so I don't know what they're going to find out there on Barbigale.
Mr. Attorney, this is the second time that they've assessed this. They've assessed this property, code enforcement, and this is the second analysis that they've had. So we're going to be bogged down in analysis and still nothing done out there. I mean, code enforcement, somebody needs to get out there and give those folks some relief out there. I mean, we keep telling them we're doing analysis after analysis, and then the folks still looking at me cross-eyed because of the fact that they mad with me. I don't have anything to do with code enforcement other than to give them the same message that you've given me here this morning. But I'm hoping that going forward that we'll move expeditiously on this property down there at Barbigale, because I don't want to go out there and all of a sudden my car veer to the right because I've gotten shot, because I don't even know why I'm getting shot, because they pretty hot with me out there now, and I'm pretty hot with code enforcement about that property. So we need to get a resolution on that one right away, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I hear a lot, I'm getting a lot of phone calls about this property.
Well, we pretty much had a resolution on it, Commissioner. We can't move the tree off of the top of the house. We can't do that. Now, I met with the new director, and I met with Shabrika Ray, our inspector, and another inspector. What they're trying to do now is get inside the house to see if there's any damage. To me, there's not going to be any damage because the tree hadn't breached the roof. So I don't think we're going to be in any better position in terms of having the house torn down. Now, in addition to that, though, they're inspecting now the pool that you talked about earlier. They're going to go out and see what we can do about that pool that remains uncovered and it becomes a nuisance itself. So we'll deal with that. But they're in the process of doing it again now. The initial inspection that they had did not indicate that there was enough damage out there to be able to get a judge to tell us to tear the house down. So they're working on that again as I speak, because I met with them about 2.5 weeks ago. But they have now lost Mr. Tennyson, an inspector who normally did all of these code violation inspections as to what it took to bring them up to code and repair a dilapidated house. He's moved over to Public Works. So they're shorthanded in that respect, but they're working on that now, and they're working on it as quickly as they can work on it. Right.
And it's not so bad. It's not so bad about the house. The house, we know that it's not going to be able to be torn down. The house is in fairly good condition. We discovered that the pool was in the back. The neighbors never said anything about the pool, but if we could get somebody to move that tree, I mean, that's the problem that the folks are so upset about. And I was thinking about taking my chainsaw out there and cut it down. But we need to move that tree.
The county can't move the tree off of the private property, Mr. Commissioner.
I know it, but...
And if you did, and you damage the roof, you'll be sued.
I understand. But sometimes I look like might need to just go ahead and take the loss and go ahead and take a chance. I'm a pretty good tree man, because that's what they want. If we could move that tree out of the way, I mean, if we could just move that tree and then the neighbor could come down and cut that yard, I mean, they'll be happy. I mean, they're not worried about anything else, but if they could just get that eyesore of that tree, like I said, it didn't touch the building, but it's almost on the building. Can we get the chainsaw gang, somebody to go out there and maybe talk to the people who own the property? There are some folks that own that property that they're listed, the husband and wife. Maybe we could ask them kindly to ask the chainsaw gang or somebody to go out there and move that tree. And man, I think the folks on Barbecue would be happy.
We can't find the people that own the property.
Okay.
Well, that's part of the problem, is what you're saying, is we can't.
Okay.
I would assume the chainsaw gang probably would want a release of some sort, so that they wouldn't get, and this is frustrating to everybody, because we're all looking at the same eyesore.
Now, the folks who own the property, Mr. Chairman, are in South Carolina. That's where they are. The folks that own the bank of property. Is that the lender that I got some information from that's on the it's a husband and wife team. But there's my understanding, based on what I've gotten from code enforcement on my own, is that the company that owns the property is in South Carolina. Matter of fact, I have that address in my wallet. In my phone.
Who are the people that owned it?
Some folks in South Carolina. Well, it's in a foreclosure. It's in a foreclosure, and the company.
It's not. I've tried to say this before. The people that own it has never been foreclosed on. The former owners on the land records of Dougherty County still own the property, even though it's never been foreclosed on, and the bank has never taken possession and it's not in foreclosure.
The bank doesn't want to foreclose on it because they don't want to deal with the problem.
Yeah. But anyway, I do have the address, and we probably need to look at it. I got this information from code enforcement on my own. I just
if you'll get that to them.
Yeah, and we'll look at that, because I was thinking about calling them and asking them if they remove the tree. They may not know the tree leaning.
Let me bring another one up to the commission now. I would bring it up next week, but I might as well bring it up now. The service station that's out there on the corner of Holly and 19. And of course, I think Commissioner Jones knows this has been an age-old problem out there, where the service station was hit by the tornado, and of course it's become a dilapidated structure. It's a commercial structure, and it was in when we initially started taking action against them, it went into bankruptcy. Of course, the bankruptcy provides for a stay. It came out of bankruptcy, and they started taking action again, and then the property changed hands to another corporation. So it's in another corporation now. What we can do with that one is we can bring that a case in Superior Court with that commercial structure, that former gasoline station out there and convenience store, and we can handle it just like we do the residential pieces. However, that's a very costly thing to demolish that. And the county's only set aside $50,000 for us to be able to utilize to be able to take down these structures. And we've taken down 3 so far. We're in the process of taking down 3 more. So we might need to assess that, and maybe Public Works could go out and see what it would cost to demolish that service station, and see if the commission wants to move forward with a nuisance abatement. That would be one way to take care of it.
Mr. Lee, go ahead.
Mr. Gaines?
Yes, thank you. I'm curious if the houses were damaged by the storm, if there is a source of funds other than what we have budgeted, some of the storm reimbursement money, some of the storm money coming out of FEMA, if any of that money can be used if it's tied to damage from the storm. You can't hear me?
It's hard to understand you through that mask.
Yes, sorry.
Is it for my? Yeah. Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I'm curious if the structure was damaged by the storm, if we could use a FEMA source of funds to demolish the structure, especially if it's in that 05 zip code.
That's a good point.
Yes, ma'am. That is not an eligible expense.
While we tore, didn't we tear down?
Paradise Village.
Yes, that was a different program, and that was specifically for Paradise Village. It's not available for individual residential properties or in this
Commercial
particular case,
structures.
this commercial case, yes, ma'am.
There's no other source of funds available to us other than the $50,000 that's budgeted in the account for storm damaged properties.
What about the thing that Sherwood was doing? Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Samaritan Purse, a long-term recovery plan.
The long-term recovery.
Yes, so there's a long-term recovery group that's still in action, helping folks that are still trying to.
Because they were helping people
these
with
storms,
roofs
but,
and stuff like that.
To my knowledge, they primarily were doing tree removal services at one time. That has stopped. Now, a lot of it has been directing folks towards services that they need, as well as we're getting into the homeowner rehabilitation program. But I can't think of the acronym of the program that
Yes.
Commissioner Gaines is referring to.
I remember it, and,
But
and
it
I
was
remember
very-
the underwriting process.
It was very extensive.
I mean, like, we had to go out there and photograph and document. It was an incredibly labor-intensive project just to get it qualified with FEMA in order to get that
Yeah,
to happen.
It was a certain time frame.
Yes, I do understand that.
So
In that regard, can we just search around? Because I don't think we've faced this, of this magnitude before the storm.
Yes.
If we can just search around and see if there are funds available, because there are a number of structures remaining that were affected by the storm, that we could perhaps try to locate money, because the problem is fairly egregious. Thank you.
would it fall up under hazard mitigation as a hazard, Mr. McCoy?
Just search around for some.
Yes, sir, we're gonna research
Okay, thank you.
available funding from outside sources.
Yes, thank you.
to,
Because $50,000 is so
address
little.
this. Yes, sir, and if not, then we could amend the budget, we could recommend amending the budget to deal with the cost of getting rid of that eyesore.
Yeah, but I think one thing that needs to be done down there, see, those folks down there, see, I've had my hands on the pulse of all of these properties from day one. Those folks down at Liberty Expressway, those folks have negotiated in bad faith. They have just flat out did not tell us the truth. I mean, and code enforcement, they played with them. They filed bankruptcy on us. They came out of bankruptcy, told us that they were going to have a plan that was going to be in front of the planning folks over there in December. Those folks are playing with us. Now, what needs to happen is we need to put pressure on those folks and have those folks to come and stand up to their obligation of tearing that building down. I mean, and how I see the attorney, I see you smiling, but how you do this is you get these folks in front of the magistrate judge over there, and explain the situation to them as to what they're supposed to do. That's what we did on these other properties, and those folks, once they went before the judge, and the judge threatened to hit them in the pocket, those dilapidated properties, they left, and we didn't pay to tear them down. Those folks took care of their obligation, and as long as we just patting them on the back and asking them and begging them, certainly they're not going to do anything. But we're going to have to hit them in the pocketbook and demand, let the court system work.
Are we talking about Betty's, are we talking about the Holly service station?
Yeah, we're talking about that.
Those folks are a corporation.
Yes.
And I've given you the way that we can take care of that. But you've got to put aside the money to be able to demolish it if the county has to demolish it, which we will have to do because they are not going to pay the money to demolish it. I can handle that if this county puts aside the money to be able to demolish it. You don't have that much money left in your $50,000 to do that. Now, if you'll notice in every one of the resolutions that I bring to you, to bring it under the dilapidated house of the nuisance abatement ordinance, the last section in there says that you authorize the county attorney, the county administrator, and code enforcement to use county funds to demolish it if it has to be done that way. Now, I do that for a reason, because you don't have an open-ended amount to be able to utilize for that, so you make the decision yourselves as to which ones you want to use your $50,000 for. That's not the way the city does it. The city does it, has a big budget in code enforcement for dilapidated structures. They go straight to it themselves. They don't go back through the city commission because they already have the money there that's been allocated for it. You don't. So I bring each one of them to you to see how you want to use your funds, the $50,000. And that's what I'm talking about now, about 19 and Holly. You can do it under the dilapidated structure nuisance abatement ordinance. But we got to have the funds there for Public Works to be able to go out and take it down, and it costs a whole lot more to take down a gasoline station
Sure.
than it does a house. So if you want to ask Public Works to go out and do an assessment on how much they think it might take, a ballpark figure, to handle that, I'll be glad to prepare the resolution and bring it to you next week for you to review.
Right.
And if you pass that resolution, then we can file it in Superior Court and know that we have enough money if we have to demolish it ourselves.
I understand what you're saying, Attorney. I clearly understand what you're saying, but then it's just like Jesus bearing the cross alone and then the whole world going free. We're going to bear the cross for these folks who have told us they were going to do various things and then let them off the hook. That's what I'm talking. That's the problem that concerns me and just kind of makes me a little bit irritated about it, is that that's what they're waiting on us to do.
I'm not in agreement with you, Commissioner, about we just letting people off the hook. That property was tied up in a bankruptcy for many, many years. It came out of bankruptcy. We started again. And then after we started and tried to notify the corporation that owned it, it sold to another corporation. And now they've started again. But the only way we can get that structure really cleaned up is to demolish it.
Right.
And if you want to set aside the money to do that, we can do that.
Right. That's the corporation that told us that they were going to bring a plan on before December 31st. The new corporation, they told code enforcement, Mr. Angel Gray and that crowd over there, that on December 31st, they were going to have the plan set up for the new company to begin work, and they were going to begin demolition of the thing out there. So that group, they were negotiating in bad faith, just like the first group did. So
I wonder if it's, perhaps it's been determined by these corporations that it's not financially feasible to demolish and reconstruct at that site. That's what I'm wondering. If, they've got, the folks that build convenience stores have about a formula. They can look at the traffic count. They can tell pretty well what their projections are going to be on the revenue, and it's you add up one side, you add up the other side, cost versus benefit. If that doesn't work out, then it doesn't work out. It doesn't get built. Commissioner Gaines?
One of the questions I had for you, Mr. Lee, when we go through this process with the courts and we get to the point where the county is able to demolish the structure from a legal perspective, who retains ownership of that property?
Who does what then?
Who retains ownership of the property?
Oh, well, all we can do is file a lien. And of course, as you know, if there are mortgages on it, we stand behind them.
Right.
So I've tried to tell the commission before, the chances of collecting your money off of these things are slim in most cases.
Right.
You can do it in some cases, and I'd have to go back to my title check on this piece of property and see whether a mortgage exists. I doubt it.
Right.
Because of the bankruptcy, but.
No, I understand. So there's a legal quagmire that occurs, and
Right.
it makes
And
it near
here's
impossible for us to recoup our money if we continue to use a policy of using taxpayer money to demolish somebody else's property because they can't take care of it or won't take care of it. And I understand there are instances where there are extenuating circumstances, but we're several years post-storm. We're trying to clean up our community, and I think it's time we take a heavy-handed approach, proactive approach towards blighted properties and property owners who refuse to invest in their properties. You know, I know we put a lien on the property, but would it be possible to put a lien on any other property or business that they hold in Dougherty County? And could we put a policy in place to say, hey, if you're, in this case, I'll use, you know, the gas station, if you've gone into and out of bankruptcy, it's a new corporation, no agent or entity associated with that new corporation can operate a business or own property in Dougherty County until that back debt is paid for. You can't walk away from this stuff anymore. We've got to find a way to hold people accountable to it and incent them to go ahead and take care of it on the front end, because it may be more preventative for future endeavors in Dougherty County if you don't.
Just to follow up on, Commissioner, just to follow up, if you don't mind, I just want to add to what he said, and you can answer it, because it is a question to you. You've been involved in this process quite a while. You've been involved in this process quite a while. Do you see anything in the process, including from the ordinance to the policies and procedures that flow out of it, do you see anywhere where we can strengthen it that is within the law, within state law, that would allow us to handle this growing problem better?
No, it's easy to handle. I'm trying, what I've been trying to tell the commission. I have told the commission that we can take down every single dilapidated property in the unincorporated area within 6 months, if you just want to do the demolition piece. We can do that. It's in the state statute, it's in our local ordinance, and it's in the city's ordinance. Now, over on the city side, the city's set aside enough money, they're attacking the issue of the blighted homes and the houses that need to be torn down. They are attacking them within the city. The unfortunate thing is that they can't collect their money. They're probably sitting out on $2 million of demolition costs that had been filed against the specific property. You've got to file it against the specific property. It doesn't attach to all of the property that an owner has. You file it, and it stays there until they either sell the house or whatever happens to it. But you're normally behind some other liens, IRS liens, Georgia revenue liens. You're behind mortgages. So you don't have a first position to be able to levy on the property and take it yourself. If they did, the city would have been levying out there on all of these pieces that they've got. So the point here is, again, we have the tools. It depends on which ones you want to take and how much money you want to spend.
Can we condemn it and give it to the land bank?
Here, I'm gonna.
It's because they're neighborhood blights, and they're bringing property values down. So that's the justification.
I want to address
for
that
spending
one
the money.
second. Commissioner Johnson.
No, he answered my question.
Oh, okay, good.
Mr.
All right,
Chair.
here's what I would like to do. I understand more than y'all realize and empathize with everybody, because I get it. I really do get it. I understand how frustrating it is. And I understand what Attorney Lee is explaining to us very, very much. And here is what I would like to have. Mr. McCoy, can we please I want a comprehensive report on the number of dilapidated buildings that we have county-wide that fall within this category. I know that staff can put together a smart report that, you know, probably characterizes A, B, and C, you know, really dilapidated, sort of dilapidated, you know, that right there, along with I understand it's not going to be, at least a conceptual estimate put together by Public Works as to what it would be for everything. What I want is a menu with everything that's on the menu. And then what I would like to do is get that report back within the next 120 days so that we can see what it is, because it's hard from my perspective. And I understand we've tried to be very fiscally conservative, but now we've gone through the different iterations of FEMA. We've gone through all kinds of stuff, trying to figure out what is going to get fixed, what's not going to get fixed. From my perspective, we now probably know pretty well that there's some housing stock that's never going to get fixed with private dollars, if that makes sense.
Yep.
And there may be some other housing programs that come in through CDBG, DR. We probably could suss that out pretty quickly. What I want is a menu with everything on it that meets that criteria. Of it probably ain't going to get fixed with private dollars. I'd like to get an estimate developed by Public Works that says this is what our projected cost would be. Would we need private folks? Could we do it in-house? Blah, 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 blah. Then, in my mind, what I would like to do is discuss that openly in a public commission meeting where we see what that number, I don't know what the number is going to be. And it probably is going to be a number that's more than we could ever bite down in 1 year. But if we actually know what the cost is, then we could potentially develop a 2-year, a 3-year, a 5-year plan to address it with. It's like retiring bad debt at a company. You can't eat it all at one time, but you could say, okay, we did $50,000 the year before. Maybe we do $100,000. And on the counter to that is maybe we spend $100,000, and yes, the chances of us collecting that are slim and none, but perhaps we actually make that property marketable again. And that's the way I would like to approach this issue, because I get it. I understand completely. I think we've exhausted all of our remedies that are ways of finding other sources of funding. And I hear the frustration in Commissioner Jones's voice, Commissioner Gaines. I get it. So does that sound reasonable to everyone?
It does.
It's a reasonable way to approach it?
If we can get our arms around how large the problem is, and what you're talking about really is an inventory.
Yes,
of
ma'am.
what we have out there, what the condition is, and what the cost might be.
Yes, ma'am.
And that sounds perfectly reasonable. And I would suggest to you as well that it's a good idea for us commissioners who are on the ground and know our districts well to input and to help them out of it.
I agree with that 110%,
Right.
particularly those areas that were so storm
Absolutely.
hit.
Right.
So we certainly have a responsibility to input to that inventory.
And when we don't have the amount of money that we really need, what we need to do then, we need to look at prioritizing which ones need to come first.
Yes, sir.
19, because that's right on the main thoroughfare.
It's sort of like we do our roads.
That's exactly right.
Prioritize.
What I'm trying to do from my perspective is, instead of picking off onesies and twosies,
Yes.
Right. I see
is
what you're saying.
figure out I don't know what all we have. I know that what typically happens is we field a bunch of phone calls from people that are angry, and we tend to be reactive. What I'm suggesting is a proactive, okay, what have we got left? And then, you can't bite off a couple $1 million worth of that in a year, but you can, if there is consensus, bite off a reasonable amount with a plan, you execute the plan, and you move forward. And then that also gives some peace of mind to commissioners, because then they go, okay, well, this one's not, this one's been ranked an A or a B or a C. This is, not as high priority as here, and let me explain to you the reason why. Is because we're having to do this within a reasonable time period. I understand this house is bothering you, but it's not nearly as bad as the one we got over in Commissioner Edwards' district, where they got snakes and trees rolling through the windows, if that makes sense.
Makes
Yeah.
sense. And then you can tell people, because after you tell people so long, they begin to lose confidence in what you're saying.
I
I know
understand.
that they've lost confidence in what I'm saying, and that's fine too, but I know what the truth is. But
That's right.
But what you just said, if you can just be able to explain to them, all these are in the hopper, but we have this one, A is what we're gonna have to deal with now. Next 2-3 years or 6 months, we'll be able to come to you, take care of yours, but right now we're dealing with this, and money drives the train.
That's right.
So this is a slippery slope, though, and I'll say this, because as we sit here and talk about plans to take taxpayers' money and clean up the county with these dilapidated properties, there is no stick for people who have viable properties now that are on the cusp of moving toward that dilapidated category. And just walking away saying, well, yeah, they'll put liens on my property and all that. They'll tear it down. It's their problem. So if we don't lay a more aggressive code enforcement or penal code on people who are trending toward that dilapidated property status, then there's no incentive for them to prevent that from happening. So we have to do both at the same time, or else we're just going to set a precedent where just leave it. The government will clean it up. I'll walk away from it. I'll leave Dougherty County. I'll never do business here again. I'm moving somewhere else. I don't care. And that attitude has to go. We need to make sure people know that if you do that, number one, we will pursue it. We will eventually put the process in place to clean up our community, and there will be a nice reserve lien on your property, and we'll work to get our money back. But we absolutely have to be more proactive with properties that are trending that way, or else everybody will be in the mindset of.
Mr. Chairman, if I could say one more thing, then I'm gonna hush up.
Okay.
I think that's a good start and a good idea to be able to assess these. I do want to let you know that that's a pretty big burden on Public Works, that on Shabrika Rate, we have one code inspector, one. We can't expect the city to use all theirs to go out and do all of these things and find all this property. The reason that that's a pretty good burden on them, and they can do it, I'm not saying don't do it. The reason is because we've been operating on complaints. And there are two reasons for that. One, we haven't had the manpower, and you operate on complaints. You don't ride around and look for problems. If you rode around and looked for problems, you'd find 80 problems in a 100-house subdivision out in the unincorporated area. So you don't ride around and look for them. And every now and then, and there's a second reason for that, every now and then we'll get somebody to come to court and argue selective prosecution. And they'll say, well, why didn't you get the one down the street? They can make a good argument if we weren't operating on complaints. So we tell them that we're operating on complaints. We haven't had a complaint on that one, and that's the reason there's no selective prosecution. We're not prosecuting you and not them. The only reason we're here is because we've had a complaint on your piece of property. So that's a legal thing that we have to be aware of, selective prosecution. So I think that when you get this list, then you'll see what we've got out there, but it will take them some time to compile a list.
I understand, and I'm also happy, and I don't want to, I need to be mindful of the fact that I'm a policy maker, not an operations person. And if staff has a suggestion on how better or more efficiently to tackle it, and some things popped to my mind, perhaps Public Works says, we're going to start with a sampling of, I don't know, like the 5 worst properties or the 10 worst properties, or just get us a list of the 20 or 30 worst properties and rank those as opposed to every single house that's out there. If we could get some sort of, what I'm trying to get is find a way to get a price for what is causing the most consternation, anxiety, and frustration. And I will tell you this, I mean, it is frustrating for me to continue to drive and see houses with blue tarps on them and trees in them. It makes me angry, and I get it. Mr. McCoy?
Yes, sir. Chairman, I would like to recommend something that I think would be more efficient and probably more effective, and that is to piggyback on what Commissioner Gaines recommended, is that each commissioner tell us which properties are the most problematic in your district that you want to see addressed. And then we can more easily inventory that list and come up with a budget. Because this is a very subjective thing for us to, and we don't have the resources, to be quite honest with you, to go around the entire unincorporated area and subjectively
Very good point.
decide what's the issue and what's not an issue. But if you are to tell us which properties, then we can address your concerns directly, inventory that list, give you a budget, and then move from there.
And I guess, since I opened the door to this and keep being the dead horse, I think each one of us know our district and have what you just said, assessed it. Now, for me, I guess what I'm looking for this morning from the chairman is we've had these same 2 pieces of property. This is not difficult. So Barb and Gale, from a residential standpoint, is number 1. The second one would be the convenience store. But that's the second one. But the first one right here, I guess I would like to ask, Public Works, when we doing road projects, and I think we've done this in the past, where we get a waiver sign. Haven't we done that in the past, Mr. Cook? If we want to go on private property, don't we usually get a waiver sign?
Yes, sir. We'll get a right-hand sign.
Okay, so my point here is, you already know Barb and Gale been on this list. And we can get, when the county attorney finds that homeowner, we can get a waiver and go and move that tree. That's all I really was after this morning. One issue first, because I'm project oriented. All that other stuff, we done mixed all up. That's good, but we got one inventory, and I'm looking for you as that leader, the Public Works, to get a waiver sign. We ain't got to go get no chain gang crew, main gang crew. He can get a waiver, and we go and move that tree. And then we find out how much it gonna cost to move that tree, and that's it.
And it makes sense.
I don't get what y'all.
And it makes sense because then the folk can cut the grass
and be through with it.
Because the tree is not on the house. I mean, that's why I said I take my chainsaw out there. But it's not on the house. It's just leaning up against the house, and it wouldn't take. It's just a no-brainer.
We just finished with all these alleys. We get a waiver sign when we was doing that.
But still, you have to reckon with the law.
But we're not violating the law.
Well,
we're not violating the law.
We need our county attorney to say whether or not it is within our as a.
No, once you get permission from the home, when he locate the homeowner, we get a waiver from Public Works, and they sign it, and so we can move the tree. Now, what Commissioner Russell's saying, this is a very isolated situation right now. This is not like we got 10 houses. 30 houses, you got one house
with a tree leaning.
With a tree, that's it.
I get your point, but and I agree we need to go ahead and tackle this one, but there's a problem behind it as well. So it's more than, it's 2 things we're trying to address here. Barb and Gale, if the county attorney looks at it
Yes, ma'am.
and says that we are within the law to seek this simple waiver, then that's fine.
Okay.
But if we must do it within the law. And if there's more to it than just getting the waiver, first of all, you got to find the owners, and
Right.
they've got to be willing to give you the waiver.
Right.
And failing that, what is plan B?
So I'm submitting myself to direction what I just mentioned to the chairman, if you could lead the attorney in that direction. And then come back next week and say, we found them, or whenever he finds them, or I couldn't find them.
Well, I'm gonna explain where I'm thinking.
Okay.
Because there's different frustrating competing components, because we all know folks that got damaged by the storm. A lot of folks reached into their own pockets and their own savings. They paid to have their trees removed, and it cost people a lot of money to do that. And then I hear Commissioner Gray saying, we're spending potentially public dollars on this, and why is it fair? Why can't I get my, I paid out of pocket. I get that. Then there's this whole cost benefit analysis of, they ain't gonna come back, we can't get them, we're gonna put a lien on the property. I got it. So we understand that. But what I know in my mind, and maybe I'm wrong, and I'm happy to be corrected, when I drive, like, it's not just Barbara Gale. Like, I drive this part of y'all's districts all the time, and Radium Springs got all kinds of houses out there. They got the same problem. And so what I'm trying to do is, how do we approach that for being fair to the community? Because then what's going to happen is, okay, we go fix that tree at Barbara Gale. Then next week, what's going to happen is, oh, I want this one out of my neighborhood. I'm just trying to figure out a way to approach the issue. What I'd like to do, I'd like to take a week to think about this and invite any comments or suggestions. My leaning is towards getting some sort of efficient plan that is judicious and fair to everybody, whether it's, everybody, and I understand Commissioner Edwards is saying, number one on his list in his district would be
It's
Barbara.
not his district. I
It's
don't know
not
why
my
he-
district.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Jones, I'm sorry.
I appreciate it, but I don't bother him
No.
being crossed the
I
line.
understand.
But I don't deal in districts.
Yeah.
I don't deal in districts. What we're dealing with today is, going
issue.
back to what the attorney said, the county is complaint driven. Those houses that you talking about, if y'all want to use it, in Radium Springs, those people ain't complaining about them tarps on them houses.
That's right.
Yes,
Well, like me, they look, because we know the situations surrounding those three houses in the back. Okay, but right here is a totally different situation that is, I guess I'm gonna just submit to you and let you think about it a week and let a revelation come to you.
No, I understand what the chair is saying, but Barbara Gale is already in the Harbor.
It's already, what?
It's already under consideration.
Yes, ma'am.
So it just seems to me we do complete that process under the program we have now, and we come to a conclusion about whether or not we can indeed do this.
Okay.
And once that decision is made, or parallel to that decision being made, we initiate a more comprehensive look, which
Okay.
is what the chairman is talking about.
I think we're all
I
driving
agree
towards
with
it. Here's what I'd
Commissioner
like.
Gaines.
Mr. McCoy, get us a cost estimate on Barbara Gale, and then let's put it on for discussion. I'd like for staff to think about a recommendation for us to socialize at the next work session about a program, whether it's for 10 houses, 15 houses, what have you. Perhaps the entire inventory of the county is too ambitious, but let's do that. So let's get an estimate. Let's move forward with discussing that, so we can have some real numbers, and the commission can decide that while it's also discussing a policy. that makes sense. I'm
Yeah.
trying to be fair to everybody, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
One last thing is to the tree on Barbigale. I would have thought that by now some good, well-meaning Good Samaritans would have taken that tree out. I'm not advising that, but I would have thought
I
that
sure
would have
wish that would happen.
In the middle of the night, just go make it disappear.
Well,
I sure wish.
if we wait long enough, Mother Nature will take its course and it'll fall on the
Well, we
house, and then they
don't,
can
there's
get
not
an
a
insurance
minute to
claim
wait.
and have
We
it
don't have a
removed.
minute to wait. We gotta move in a hurry.
I understand. All
But you
right.
did hear that part about the wave.
The horse called, he said he's dead. Well,
All right, let's roll.
Appreciate it, Mr. Chairman.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
thank you. Commissioner Johnson.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chair, I just want to thank this commission and you for your support on the Heath Park improvements. I think the commission is going to really appreciate it. And the recommendations on the tennis center and that progress will come to the full commission just for consideration. I think this is next Monday.
Yes,
And it's just a recommendation, nothing is etched in stone, but we'll get a progress report on the status at the time.
All right, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Gray?
Yeah, on a complete opposite end of the spectrum, I want to share a lot of positive feedback I've gotten both personally and through social media about the cleanup at Radium Springs. That and the tennis center, kudos to the recreation committee for selecting progress toward putting the tennis center at Tiff Park. I've gotten a lot of positive feedback about that, but I can't tell you enough about the wonderful comments on Facebook and other social media and things I've gotten personally about Radium Springs and the cleanup. There's so much excitement building about that area, about the trails. I'm really surprised at the number of people that utilize that facility already. I stopped by there a week and a half ago on my way down to Thomasville just to check it out, and I met a family from Florida who's originally from China, who put Radium Springs on their map to come to spring break because they wanted to get out of Florida for spring break. So it is very much an attraction and is looking even better and better. So kudos to everybody for that.
Very good. All right. Thank you to everyone. Did I miss anybody? I get everybody? All right, we're adjourned.
Cool.
Grady's going to be 22 years old this week. I wish him happy birthday. We're adjourned.